please.
I'll maybe start from the beginning again. So the recommendation before you is that council direct administration to finalize and submit an annexation application to the MGB for the annexation of lands in the county of Vermilion River as set out in the revised notice of intent as attached. Just a sub note to this, didn't get into a lot of detail in terms of the negotiations because those were all considered without prejudice. And so a lot of the details of those negotiations are not included in this for that very reason. So in December of 2019, the city submitted a revised notice of intent to the MGB and the county of Vermilion River. The city and the county have continued to work collaboratively towards an uncontested annexation. However, recently the discussions have moved in a different direction. Given the timelines that have occurred since 2015, city administration recommends that the city move forward at this time with our annexation application. The background, as stated, we're working towards an agreement for annexation dating back to 2015 with the commencement of the joint regional growth study. The intent of the study was to act as a precursor to preparing an enabling environment for regional growth and development. In addition, the regional growth study was to be utilized as a technical report for an uncontested annexation of lands in the county of Vermilion River. In 2018, the city withdrew from the joint regional growth study process, but then resumed discussions in July of 2018. Sorry, we withdrew in 2017, not 2018. Since 2018, significant progress has been made in discussions with the county, including each municipality publicly approving the joint regional growth study in June of 2019. Further to that, 2 public engagement sessions were held, one hosted in Blackfoot and the other within the city of Lloydminster. And then finally, and there's, as well as that, there was online opportunities for residents, landowners, and stakeholders to share concerns, information, and ask questions regarding the proposed annexation and the process that occurred between June and September of 2019. So the options before you today are to submit the application to the Alberta Municipal Government Board for the annexation of lands in the county of Vermilion River, to not approve the submission of the application, and the third option is that council requests further information to be brought forward at a future council meeting. This aligns with our strategic plan in terms of that. Legal review has been completed, and so forth. And I guess the budget financial implication is that annexation may involve the payment of compensation to the municipality whose land is being annexed. So that's not uncommon. So I turn it back to you, Your Worship, for any questions or comments.
Thank you, City Manager. Questions or comments from council? I know members of the council, including myself, have had the opportunity to work towards, have been on that negotiating committee known as INAC, and I appreciate the efforts and energy that have been spent by the committee to work towards this process. A lot of work has been done by administration as well, and thank them for gathering the information as requested by the committee. It's been a lot of progress to this point. I appreciate that very much. Councillor Thorson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I really appreciate that this is before us now, and we are staying true to our timelines in terms of getting an application before the MGB board, within a timeline that we set, and really just to see some resolution on this issue that's taken a considerable amount of effort and time from administration and members of the committee who have poured a lot of full days into negotiations. But with that, I can't say that I'm not disappointed that we're going there on our own. But at the same time, there's always a possibility that some sort of negotiation can continue at some point, and we can maybe get some more feedback in terms of what had been on the table at the time. So, as far as we know right now, we are going with a contested application. Not ideal in my eyes. I think there was a lot of great things that we worked out across the table, and it's only very recently that things moved in a different direction, but I'm still satisfied that we are getting our application before the board.
Thank you. Councillor Dachek.
Thanks, Your Worship. I think I would like to echo the sentiment certainly of yourself and Councillor Torzan, and I think it's important to sort of even give a little more context that this certainly isn't the city's first attempt to proceed through this annexation process, and we have met with challenges in the past. And I think coming out of the starting gate with this council, recognize that we may have some challenges, and the fact is that we did have two facilitators that were part of the process and helped steer the way in a way that I think was very constructive. And to support what Councillor Torzan said there, I think there are a lot of pieces in there that were fleshed out relative to the benefits of the city, the benefits to the county in terms of the whole annexation process, and really, I think, reinforcing the symbiotic relationship between both of us, where we both succeed when we both succeed. It's not a win. It should never be a win-lose kind of scenario. So I think there was lots that we agreed on. And given kind of the scope of all that's gone on, it's not unusual, I would say, in my mind, to see that there are some differences in the final analysis, because it's a very complex process. There are many elements to this discussion that are, again, beyond what we can share at this point in time. But I think it is complex. It has impacts for the city long term. And I really think that, again, the direction that the annexation proposal is being taken is one that we see as being beneficial for the city decades going forward, and is important to the city having in place in order for the city to expand, to grow, and really for the businesses and citizens to have a city where they can have the amenities and successful business operations. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Torreson.
Yeah, and just to add to some of the rationale maybe for members of the public who are looking at this and saying, okay, things have been kind of slow here the last year or two. Well, what's the point of an annexation? And the reality is growth, and having that potential to plan and have kind of intelligent growth for the city over a number of years. Like the downturn we've had is a temporary problem, and we've had these temporary problems in our history in the past, and we've found a way to grow through them and grow at tremendous amounts through the history of our city. And I don't see that as something that's changed. Our role as council and in economic development and in finding new different industries and supporting the ones that we do have, I think are incredibly important. But there will be a bounce back in the land ask that we have and the land needs that we have. I don't see those going away, not in the long term. So maybe there's a short-term issue, but at the end of the day, we need to have the ability to grow in an intelligent way, to grow our economy, to grow our community, to provide higher levels of quality service to residents and businesses. And without this, I just don't see how we could possibly get there when we could potentially run out of land in not that much time. So this is something that's definitely necessary and something that we need to do. And I'm just happy to kind of see some kind of resolution in this area, because the process has gone on long before 2015, as I understand it. It's been going on for a significantly longer period of time. That's just from the last iteration of the one growth study that that it's gone so many times, and we haven't seen any kind of movement, and finally we're seeing some movement on this file. So it's great to see. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Torreson. Councillor Buckingham.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to echo what was said earlier about the amount of time and effort that's been put in by both administration and the members of council that were appointed to that committee for negotiations. It's has been a very, very time-consuming effort for those of you that are on that committee, and for those of us that aren't, thanks for all you've done to get us to this point.
Councillor Fagnan. Well, Councillor, you're still on mute. Get you off of mute there.
I got it.
There you go.
And I guess, thank you, Your Worship. And I think that's why you see most municipalities moving into the 50-year negotiations for annexation. It is a very, very time-consuming process, and sometimes it takes that amount of time. But in my mind, every 50 years or so are pretty good. So I can see why the process takes some time. There's a lot of moving parts, and again, echoing what everybody says, it was a lot of time put in by all on this, and I'm glad to see it moving forward.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments? Questions? Not seeing any. I'll look for direction from council on 6.1.1 annexation application submission. Councillor Diachak.
Right, I move that council direct administration to finalize and submit an annexation application to the Alberta Municipal Government Board, NGB, for the annexation of the lands of the County of Vermilion as set out in the revised notice of intent to annex attached.
Seconder. Councillor Monroe, thank you very much. Any further discussion on the motion that's been presented? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor, please raise your hand.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to 6.2 and to City Manager. I'll look to you for 6.2.1.
Thank you, Your Worship. To present 6.2.1, new bylaw template, I'll ask Chelsea Legacy to present from Legislative Services.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council.
Good afternoon, Chelsea.
I'm here to present you with the new bylaw template. Our recommendation today is that Council accept this report as information. This is to ensure that Council and the public are aware of the new template for city bylaws moving forward. Administration has implemented some changes to the bylaw template. The changes to the template are required to ensure consistency and ease of reference. This new template is much more user-friendly for members of administration when developing bylaws and will assist legislative services with accurate and consistent bylaws. This new template will also allow members of the public better searchability, ensuring they have ease of access for the information they require. The options before us today is that Council accept this report as information, or that Council request additional changes to the template. This item is in alignment with legislative compliance. Ensuring the proper information is outlined in a consistent way will ensure all legislative requirements are met when bringing forward bylaws. Legal has reviewed this new template and suggested some changes, and we have implemented those. Governance implications, all future bylaws will come forward in this new format. And I will open it up to Your Worship and Council for any questions.
Thank you very much, Chelsea. Questions or comments from City Council? Councillor Diachak.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. I guess one of the things that I've heard people being challenged with, and I've experienced it as well, is that trying to find a bylaw on a particular topic, and are we also looking at sort of beyond this in terms of how we catalog and categorize, and so that it's easy to log in and say, I want to know about, a dog bylaw or whatever it is, so that we can simply go in and find it. And I haven't gone in to check in the last little while either. Perhaps these changes have been made. I just haven't gone to look. So is there any connection beyond the design into how we access it as well? Because one of the things I see, it says, being more transparent and easily accessible to the public.
Absolutely. Thank you for your question, Councillor Diachak. Administration is also currently working on that as well. That is kind of a goal of ours moving forward, would be to revamp the external website and create better searchability. We've also, since we've implemented our new records management in SharePoint, it's easier for staff to find things because each document has more searchability criteria that you can access. So administration is working towards having that same kind of searchability for external websites for members of the public as well.
Okay, thank you.
Chelsea, for the public's information, it may be difficult, as you've just described, finding bylaws, but bylaws are on our website and are free of charge, and they're able to take a look at them and print them at their own leisure. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And if the public is unable to find something, they can also email administration. There's a link on there that if they reach out, the email comes directly to me, and if they aren't able to find it, I'm able to contact that member of the public and respond to what they need.
Thank you very much. Councillor Torres, I believe you had your hand up.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, just as far as the discussion of getting these on the website and a little more searchable, how does that work, or what's the intention there? And I know it's a little bit off topic at this point, but what's the intention as far as older bylaws or ones that aren't necessarily changing, that are maybe in a different older format?
Slowly but surely, we are trying to get everything up to date and named in accordance with the new naming system. However, the more older, outdated bylaws are a little bit more difficult to create searching criteria for because they aren't scanned in a certain way that you can search words within that document. However, administration is working with our IT team as well to kind of figure out the best course of action as to how we could add them in there, not so the names are so long, but that if, for example, dog, if you look up dog, you want to search the bylaws that have that word within it, not just the bylaws that have that word within the name. So it's a slow but steady process, but personally, I'm working on the website right now to try to make it easier for the public to search those older documents as well as our newer ones.
Awesome. Thank you very much. As far as the new template looks, to me, it looks like it'll work for our purposes and looks good to me. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Chelsea on the bylaw, on the new bylaw template? I think it'll be muchly appreciated as we continue. Legislative services over the last few years have been taking a lead on getting things more current and up to date, and the naming, the numbering, and now the bylaws. I appreciate that very much. I think it'll be appreciated by both administration, fellow administration, council, as well as the public for ease of access.
Thank you, Your Worship.
No further discussion. I'll look for direction on 6.2.1 from City Council on the new bylaw template. Councillor Fagnan. Oh, just one more.
I move that council accept this report as information.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Thorson, thank you very much. Is there any further discussion before I call for the question on this item? Not seeing any. All in favor, please raise your hand.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, Chelsea.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Moving on to 6.2.2, I'll look to the city manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. To present 6.2.2, request for funding from Protective Services Reserve. I'll ask the Deputy Fire Chief Bill Hessing to report.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council. My name is Bill Hastings, Assistant Fire Chief of Lloydminster Fire Department. Representing Fire Chief Sawicki today as he is currently away on vacation. The recommendation before you today is that Council approve the request to withdraw funds in the amount of $101,100 excluding GST from the Protective Services Capital Reserve 1-200-250-35120 for the purchase of equipment to meet the requirements of the collective bargaining agreement and the apparatus operational serviceability. Administration is requesting the transfer of funds from the Protective Services Operating Reserve for safety and operational related purchases. Some background: in May of 2018, Fire Services entered into a collective bargaining agreement that was ratified in June of 2019. In that agreement, several items related to personal protective equipment were to be obtained and placed into service. As part of the planning for these purchases, funds are placed in the Protective Services Operating Reserve. Administration is requesting that funds in the amount of $101,100 excluding GST be withdrawn from the Protective Services Operating Reserve to meet the requirements of the collective bargaining agreement and apparatus operational serviceability. Items to be acquired pertaining to the collective bargaining agreement requirement are procurement of 47 sets of coveralls, 47 sets of fire boots, and 32 sets of bunker gear. Of this request, we are looking to procure 16 sets of bunker gear in 2020, with the remainder being purchased over the following 2-year period. By spreading these purchases out, it will ensure that future purchases are more easily managed and budgeted for. The recent purchase of Pump 20 did not include equipment for the apparatus. Due to the equipment on the retired apparatus being at the end of its serviceable life, new equipment is required to meet the minimum standard of NFPA 1901, which is a standard for automotive fire apparatus. Future apparatus purchases will be tendered to include equipment to ensure that apparatus may enter service with up-to-date and certified equipment on board. It should be noted that at completion of the purchase of the pump in 2019, there was an approximately $40,000 budget remaining. This project was closed off in 2019. In order to meet the collective bargaining agreement and the apparatus operational serviceability, administration is requesting that council approve the transfer from protective services operating reserve in the following amounts. For the protective equipment, $80,100. Pump 20 equipment is $21,000 for a total of $101,100,000. Two options in front of you today is number one, council approve the request to withdraw funds in the amount of $101,100, excluding GST from Protective Services Capital Reserve for the purchase of the equipment required by the collective bargaining agreement and the apparatus operational serviceability. And the second option is a council request further information and that the item be brought forward to a further regular council meeting for decision. The alignment with the strategic plan is this item is in alignment with the following strategic area: legislative compliance to meet obligations of the collective bargaining agreement, along with the minimum standard of the NFPA 1901 standard for automotive fire apparatus. The budget financial implications is the collective bargaining agreement requirements were budgeted through the Protective Services Operational Reserve. The additional equipment required for Pump 20 was not allotted in the 2020 budget. Thank you.
Thanks, Deputy Chief. Questions or comments from council? Councillor Buckingham.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Assistant Chief Easing. Just for those that might not be aware of it, when we're talking about equipping Pump 20, what kind of things are being put on that truck? I think it's kind of a pertinent information for people that don't work in the service or understand that, to know what kind of things you're looking to acquire.
Okay, thank you for the question, Councillor Buckingham. The specific items that we're looking for on Pump 20, as it is a wildland interface unit, we are looking to number one, meet the minimum requirements of NFPA 1901, which is the standard to state how much hose, how many nozzles you should have. Along with it being a wildland interface truck, we are also looking to put some wildland equipment on it. So such things as wage-ass packs or backpacks where we can carry water, some wildland hose, which is lighter hose when we're fighting grass fires and doing wildland type of calls.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Any further questions? Assistant Chief, are we, the coveralls would be, I imagine those would be fireproof coveralls that are being bought for services such as fighting grass fire versus bunker gear? Is that what we're seeing?
That is correct, Your Worship. They are wildland rated coveralls.
Okay. And the boots, are they an additional set of boots and then bunker gear to go with, to complement the fire department for their services? Is that firefighters? Is that what that's required for?
That is correct. Part of the collective agreement was to purchase wildland boots or wildland firefighting boots. The boots that we would be purchasing would be a dual purpose. They would also be for structural firefighting and for wildland firefighting. It would minimize the amount of boots that we would need to buy if we could buy one pair of boots that could do dual purpose.
Okay. And bunker gear, if my memory serves me correctly, also has a serviceability lifespan, correct? So this is not one of those buy once and you never replace it. In due time, administration will be back looking to replace bunker gear that's in position today, and this bunker gear is an example.
And that is correct. And a great comment there is manufacturer's recommendations is anywhere from 7 to 10 years of bunker gear. And hence that is the second reason why we're spreading over the purchases, not purchasing all in 1 year, because we'd be back at the table in 10 years to that much more again. So again, if the more we could spread out and buy so many sets a year, the better it is.
Okay, thank you. Take some of the it helps flatten out the budget just a little bit.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Any other questions or comments? Not seeing any. Councillor Buckingham.
I just prepared to make the motion.
I'm open to entertaining that motion.
I move the council approve the request to withdraw funds in the amount of $101,100 excluding GST from the Protective Services Capital Reserve 1-200-250-35120 for the purchase of equipment to meet the requirements of the collective bargaining agreement and the apparatus operational serviceability.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Torson, thank you very much. Any further discussion on the motion that's been presented? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor, please raise your hand.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, Assistant Chief. Have a great day.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Moving on back to the agenda, moving down to 6.5 to operations, 6.5.1, City Manager.
Thank you, Worship. For 6.5.1, we're going to break it into two different parts. The first one will be the new wastewater treatment facility integrated project delivery contract, the CCDC 30, which will be presented by Don Stang. Following that, Terry Burton will be giving an update on the wastewater treatment plant and how what stage we're at and so forth. So we'll start with Don at the CCDC 30 contract.
Thank you,
Thank
City
you.
Manager Stang.
Yeah, thank you, City Manager. Good afternoon, Council. Before you, we have the new wastewater treatment facility integrated project delivery contract for CCDC 30. Just to let you know what CCDC 30 is, it is the Canadian Contract Document Committee. So they're standard documents used in the construction industry. The 30 is the number that relates to the actual contract. Administration is looking for council to provide a recommendation to enter into the project integrated project delivery contract CCDC 30 with the following vendors: ISL Engineering and Land Services, Chandos Bird Joint Venture, Suez Water Technologies and Solutions Canada, and Magna 4 Engineering for the design and construction of the City of Lloydminster's new wastewater treatment facility. In addition, that Mayor and City Clerk be authorized to sign and seal all necessary documents. At the July 3rd, 2019 Special Council meeting, Council approved the recommendation to proceed with a delivery of the mechanical wastewater treatment project using integrated project delivery or IPD procurement process. The city's procurement team publicly procured successful vendors, which are a part of the IPD contract, including ISL Engineering Land Services as our owner's engineer, the general contractor or GC as Chandos Bird Joint Venture, our technology vendor, Suez Water Technologies and Solution, and our partner with regards to electrical controls and system vendor, Magna 4 Engineering. The IPD team for the City of Lloydminster's new wastewater treatment facility has finalized the integrated project delivery contract, the CCDC 30. This document has been reviewed by all parties. There has been a smaller committee that was formed by the general contractor as well as city staff, along with our legal counsels, reviewed and brought all the supplementary conditions into alignment with the project delivery we are using for this project. The document has been reviewed by all other parties, and everybody is in agreement that the contract before council today is in the best interest of the city, the project, and the team as a whole through the IPD process. Options for council today are to approve and recommend the contract be signed by the mayor and city clerk, or that you request further information be brought forward to a meeting in the future. The alignment with the strategic plan, utility upgrades, construction of a new plant will have significant social and environmental benefits, not only for the current future operations of Lloydminster, but also for the downstream cities, towns, villages, and Indigenous communities that rely on the North Saskatchewan River for drinking and recreation. Legal review, as discussed with council, We have had our legal counsel be fully involved in the process from when we started in October of 2019 until the document has been ready to bring forward for council for consideration. There has been a lot of negotiation back and forth with regards to the supplementary conditions, and they have been very helpful through the process. And I believe the contract we're bringing forward to council today, again, has the best benefits of the city, the project, and the entire IPD team taken into consideration. Just a real quick summary on the budget. As council is very well aware, the overall estimated project cost is $81.5 million for the wastewater treatment plant. $6 million of that is coming from the Canada-Alberta Provincial Territory Infrastructure Component Small Communities Fund. $24,200,000 is coming from Canada-Saskatchewan Provincial Territory Infrastructure Component National and Regional Projects. $9,700,000 is coming from the Alberta Municipal Water Wastewater Partnership Grant Fund. $9,078,915 will be coming forward through the Canada-Alberta Investing in Capital, our Canadian Infrastructure Program, the ICEP program, and the City of Lloydminster borrowing capacity for the project will be $32,521,085 for a total funding of $81,500,000. Environmental impacts to meet the current requirements, permits, and objectives from Saskatchewan Water Security Agency and Environment Canada. The current lagoon system obviously needs to be replaced with a new mechanical treatment facility, and this contract is part of that process. I'll pass it back to you, Your Worship, if there's any questions from council.
Thank you, Executive Manager Stang. Questions or comments, council? This is a matter that's been before us for some time, and I'm glad to see progress being made. Executive Manager Stang, I've had a chance to, the contract was provided in our package, and one of the areas of question was around a bond or surety, because this is a little different than your conventional 3 bids and a buy, and then the contractor, because we have multiple players involved. So can you fill us in how the bid bond / surety may cover the city from this perspective?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I guess to first provide some context, the contract in front of you today is part A of a bigger contract. We are currently in the validation phase for the IPD project. The validation report will provide more information around costing, profit share, bonding. To answer your question, the bonding will be evaluated by the integrated project delivery team, and as such would be a cost of the project as a whole. The city and our partners will be evaluating what is the most appropriate bonding and security to bring forward, and any costs associated with that bonding would be captured in the validation report. So the validation report is part 2 of the contract, so it will form part of the overall contract for construction of the wastewater treatment plant.
Thank you. So it's I appreciate it's being covered, but may not be directly in this first portion.
That is correct.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Certainly, Executive Manager Stang, this the group that you've brought that's come together through the process this will not be their first wastewater treatment plant, if that's a question I can pose from what information I've received, but I just want to confirm that.
Yeah, well, there's numerous partners here. ISL Engineering has been designing, large infrastructure projects, water treatment plants, wastewater treatment plants, those types of infrastructures. So they're well versed in the type of project we're doing. Bird is a major general contractor with regards to building large infrastructure projects such as water, wastewater treatment plants as well, right across Canada. Shandos is another project management committee, our group, that is involved in large projects, whether it be infrastructure projects such as this or hospital, schools, those types of things. So very averse. And Magna 4 is also a consulting firm that does a lot of work with regards to water wastewater project. And Suez Technology, or Suez Water Technologies and Solutions, probably considered one of the industry leaders in providing technology and equipment to run water wastewater treatment plants. So I'm very confident in the team we've put together to deliver this project.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Torres, and then I'll get Councillor Diachuk.
Yeah, just a general comment on the contract in general. Like I've seen a handful of these before in my career, and this one just strikes me as interesting because the contract itself is very reflective of the nature of the project and the nature of the way it's being conducted as an IPD model. Generally when you look at one of these things, there'll be some favor put towards an engineer, an owner, or construction company as far as consequential damages or waivers of liability or limitations of liability, insurance, all of those things. You normally see, one side has a little bit of an edge over the others, and this contract, it's just interesting that there's very much a sharing in the risk within this contract, just like the nature of the project is everyone is sharing in the risk and rewards. So I just thought it was an interesting read as far as contracts go, which is never really an interesting read. But for this one, it was kind of neat that everything is very much a fair share in anything that could go wrong, and not holding each other accountable for things beyond control, different things like that. It was just, it's kind of a neat contract and a neat process to be a part of. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Diachuk.
Thank you, Worship. I guess Executive Manager Stan, I'm assuming that, this is the preliminary work. We have the contract, and then we're looking at boots on the ground and stuff beginning to happen. So can you just talk a bit more about timelines and what we can expect to see over the next year?
Yeah, I'll defer that to Terry. Can give a full project update after we kind of bring this motion forward. So he'll be able to tell us where we're at and where we're going.
Yeah, I was trying to find a completion date on the contract, and I struggled with that, and probably got lost on about page, I don't know what number it is even.
Again, that goes back to the Part A and Part B component. Yeah. So Part A is the contract where we talk about the CCDC 30, but the validation report, which will tell us our schedule, our construction costs, and those types of things, that forms part of CCDC 30 and is needed to form the entire contract. So we're hoping that will be in front of council mid to late August for your recommendation to either proceed with the project or to look at other means of delivering a wastewater treatment plant. So it will be in council's full purview to give what we consider in this project the go or no go. That will come at the validation report, and those details will be very clear in that document.
So just if I could follow up, how much money have we invested and spent up to this point on this project?
Validation was estimated around $3 to $3.5 million.
Okay, thank you.
Terry, shake your head if I'm getting that right. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Any further discussion, questions regarding the CCD 30 contract for this project delivery? Not seeing any, I will look for council on direction on 6.5.1, new wastewater treatment facility integrated project delivery contract, CCDC 30. Councillor Buckingham.
Move the council direct administration to enter into the Integrated Project Delivery Contract CCDC 30 with the following vendors: ISL Engineering and Land Services, Chandros Bird Joint Venture, Suez Water Technologies and Solutions Canada, and Magna 4 Engineering for the design and construction of the City of Lloydminster's new wastewater treatment facility. In addition, that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign and seal all necessary documents.
Thank you. A seconder? Councillor Diachuk, thank you very much. I'll ask, is there any further discussion before I call for the question on the motion that's been presented? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor, please raise your hand.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Opposed, carried. Thank you very much. Now I'll turn it over through the city manager to Terry Burton for an update on this fine project.
Thank you. My pleasure to give a little bit of an update to council here. As you can, everybody see on the screen, a little bit of a rendering.
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I can.
I
Oh,
can see it.
Up to mine, so I'll wait for it to catch up here.
Ah, got it. I'm good.
Okay, so this is the latest, I guess, concept or rendering that come out of the validation phase, and it's in front of us, so I might as well talk about it now. So this is just the latest. Actually, this is the first rendering that we've seen on this project up to this point in time. So I thought it was important to share with council, as well as explain a few key pieces here. So on the right-hand side, you can see that would be the darker part of that building side of things. That's our existing wastewater treatment facility on site today. With the lighter colored stuff off to the right or to the left-hand side, that would be the new proposed building that is coming together as part of the validation report up to this point in time. So it's a combination of a prefab structure off to the very far left with a conventional concrete type structure as part of the administration side of things where the vehicles are depicted there. The other key piece that's coming out of the project, as you can see on the very bottom left-hand corner, is the project emblem. As we went along with this project, it was felt that the team felt that it was important for them to create something of their own unique identity. I guess in all reality, it's not perceived as a logo, but close to that. But we're calling it a project emblem, and the emblem actually shows the key aspects of things. And coming forward with 4 of the key values that the team kind of definitely came up with as part of the initial work on this project, and that being excellence, resiliency, responsibility, and satisfaction. And you can see with the emblems, you've got some key ones there with water, the hard hat, and you know, the leaves within the gears. So working through the process and being green and environmentally sound and friendly, I guess, in all reality too. So again, a little bit of show and tell there just as a background, but I'll continue on and go through sort of an update right from, in all reality, late last year all the way till today. You know, some key things that definitely happened, and we'll go from there. So as part of the CCDC 30 that we just talked about, in 2019 or late 2019, we talked about the procurement of the actual teams. So the Suez's, the Magnas, and the Chandros Bird. So that was completed in the very late fall of 2019 and brought on board as part of that initial procurement side of things. With council's approval today, we're solidifying that CCD 30 contract, and we'll move forward as part of the project. In January of this year, the team started actually officially work on the project. Starting first off with 2 weeks of what we call onboarding, where the team got to, in all reality, learn about each other, what their roles in this project are, what are the city's, owners' requirements, goals, and constraints. So what's our principles of the project that need to be met as part of, for this team to meet. So that was on the beginning or the middle of January. Officially, validation kicked off right after that first 2 week side of things. So January 28th is when we actually officially kicked off validation phase. Back when we started doing the validation report, we went through a lot of foundational discussions with the team. what's our current site, what is our projected flows and loads through the system, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we also looked at and went through the pull planning process as well. That initial, I guess, plan or pull plan indicated that validation report would be in front of council in all reality probably within the next couple of weeks. That has since delayed a little bit, and I'll get into that as we go a little further on in this process. The team worked in the big room upstairs at the operations center, and we committed to working 3 days a week. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of every week, the big room was utilized. There was the odd week where we weren't, but those had some circumstances associated with staff holidays or whatever else on that side of things. But for the most part, the big room was utilized to the full extent. I talked about that poll planning, and I say our first I guess look at that poll plan and how we want to actually get this validation report completed and off to council. I indicated that to be we were targeting June 22nd. After we went through a couple of iterations of that and found a major backlog within, I think it was the May time period, and we had a lot of tasks that need to be completed in May. So we made the decision to extend another month. So looking into July for moving this forward into council's hands. Of course, as everybody's been impacted by COVID-19, this project was impacted as well. But not severely or only so slightly. And I want to make sure that's very important too, is that work that we did as part of the onboarding and the work that we did within the big room built up that trust and that workability, collaboration quite significantly in this new world of video conferencing like we are here right now. Didn't slow us down a heck of a lot. I would say very, very marginally, if it did at all. And thankfully, we were able to keep on task and move forward, even though we all had to work from home or work from our offices, but in this video conferencing type of a world. So we were using Microsoft Teams extensively for that process. And again, I take that as being that initial work and that we did in the big room as being a very plus in how it was we were adaptable to this impact of COVID-19. We started getting more and more decisions being made as part of the team as to materials, treatment technologies, building as you see it here in the background, all those kind of key pieces. And we started looking at pulling all these costs together. And at the beginning of March, we started looking at our first cost estimate. It came in slightly higher. I use the word slightly in tongue-in-cheek here. We came in higher, there's no doubt about it. We were approximately $10 million higher than our budget today. Quite significant. We always talk about IPD and the possibility, or not the possibility, almost the guarantee of this mountain to despair that happens. And as part of that process of where that cost estimate ebbs and flows up and down, meeting that, and finally settling down on a very targeted value. And this was, I guess, in all reality, our mountain to despair when we seen that numbers, and we kind of went, we're not going to get this project validated where we're at. The whole team took approximately 2 weeks, went back to the books, looked at everything from what we were actually proposing for in the facility, but also look in the more details of what we were estimating our projects at this point in time. Again, you got to take that into consideration. Of the validation is not absolute, it's just certainty. It's, do we have enough information to be certain that what we're costing is going to be realistic once we get into the detailed design side of things. So it's based off of those that we found quite a bit of significant decreases to this project, and we were able to bring it down below our budget. We were sitting at 90, I think it was 95 when we started, and we brought it down to 79 after those 2 weeks of time, without significantly impacting the facility in any shape or form. Some of the bigger cost estimates, as I alluded to, was of course how we how we estimated for quantities of, say, concrete. Some of that stuff may have been estimated, and once we looked at it, we brought things down. Duplication of things. There were some very significant duplications within our estimate. And as you can see with the concept behind you, not having 100% of this being, I guess, construction, but part of this being prefab, and where that has some significant savings as well. So it was a good effort. Put us out a couple of weeks, of course, but I think well, 2 weeks is good for us as a municipality, getting this down closer to our actual estimate, or budget, I should say. Sorry, trying to follow through my notes here. So today we are sitting about, I would say, 80–90% through validation. I talked about 2 weeks. I was taking 2 weeks to go through this mountain of despair and get the cost estimate down. That has extended our timeline, and we are targeting now for the validation report to come forward to council for council approval on August 17th, GPC on August 10th. We feel very good about making that those dates. Gives us a little more time to complete this validation report and some of the smaller details that are not as part of the process itself. So with that coming forward, the validation report on the 10th and the 17th, after council gives a blessing to proceed, bar that they do, hopefully they do, we'll start off with a design procurement phase right after that. And that's about eight months to a year as part of the design and procurement side of things. But we're hoping to do some construction this fall. Again, that's probably more like a site type stuff, moving some utilities around, some of those base work with the actual facility and major type of construction starting in the spring of 2021. We're still looking at probably a 2-year construction window. So we're looking into the mid 2023 for this facility to start looking into being commissioned and actually in operation. We still got in mind of our new deadline, and we're making sure that we'll be well within that boundary so that we're operating and up to regulations before that. Of course, we got to work with our regulator quite extensively in this project, especially being this IPD and the collaborative aspect of things. They're very unfamiliar with it, just as as we are green with it at the city. They're just as green too, but they've been very receptive in our conversations with them. And as we go down this road, getting our permits to construct and obviously into permits to operate and all those kind of things, we look forward to working with them and getting those things approved accordingly. All in all, that's kind of a quick little highlight of what we've done here in the past 6 months here. But definitely expect to see this in this validation report in front of you, in front of council here in August. I'll pass any questions off to the team here too.
Thank you, Terry. I'll look to Council Diachuk for questions.
Thanks, Your Worship. I guess kudos to the group. This is a first time going through this process in terms of building something this significant, and it is extremely significant, not only in terms of what it will do for the community, but the cost as well. Now, we had a facilitator, and I believe one of the consultants has done this kind of work before. Are we on track relative to that process in your estimation? You talked about the comfort level was 2 weeks working together, and because I can see the construction part of it being one piece of it. The other part is how well are we playing together and working together? And as based on the consultant's feedback, are we where we're supposed to be?
Yeah, I would say that we're doing very well in an aspect. That aspect of things. Again, I alluded to that working together collaboratively in that big room, and how we adapted into this new world of video conferencing and all that stuff like that too. It definitely slowed us down a bit. Again, I'm totally admitting to that, and I think the team would admit to that too. But I'm not saying that we're behind by weeks or months. I think we're only behind by a couple of weeks, maybe even 3 type scenarios. Validation is a fun thing for engineers to really grasp their minds around. Again, it's that certainty part versus absolute, knowing what those costs are. So it's making sure that we are only doing what we need to do to make sure that this project, this IPD team is confident and certain they can build the project for under whatever value comes forward with as part of this validation report in front of you.
Thank you.
Previous relationships helped that, Councillor Diachuk, too. A lot of these companies have worked together on projects in the past, so there is a sense of trust that was built even as we started validation. So I think that was really good, bringing the actual team together, the actual team members, and being in that big room for, you know, a couple months before COVID hit was very, very beneficial for building those in-team, smaller team trusts and relationships. And I think that's just kind of worked forward through, you know, we're not meeting face to face, but we're meeting a lot on Teams and other social media networks, and it's worked to keep this project moving forward. So we're lucky with the team we have.
Yeah, and just to add to that one, there is, you know, it's probably 3 parties that have already worked together on another IPD project. So I think that's a great strength from our perspective too.
Okay. If I had just one more question, I guess, and I sort of raised it before in the past, but I guess I'm thinking about alternate energy sources and by way of new solar panels or other energy sources that we may consider now. I mean, I see you've come in at around 75 million and the money we have is around 81. So the budget's pretty thin relative to any extras that may be available. But pending, I guess, grants and supports that may be coming from provinces or the federal government at this point, I wonder if that capacity to add sort of that solar power alternate energy is being considered in the construction and design of this.
Those things are being discussed at a very high level right now, and not necessarily a part today. But I'm not saying that it's not hasn't been discussed. It was actually just discussed again last week, and as a possibility. We, as part of the funding side of things, I think it's the ICIP, Alberta ICIP grant funding that we have on this project. We have to complete a greenhouse gas assessment as well as a climate lens assessment. And those obviously have that environmental piece to it and the green aspect of things too. So it may come out as part of a requirement of that or something, but nothing's been solidified at this point in time.
Okay, still early, is what I'm hearing you say. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
As there's, sorry, Your Worship, as there's efficiencies in the budget and there's potential additional funding that the city can then look at, do we invest that funding in some of these technologies that you're talking about, Councillor Diachuk, or do we use it to reduce our borrowing capacity? Those will be discussions we'll bring back to council in the future to talk about further.
Excellent, thank you.
Other questions for administration regarding Terry's update? I believe I've talked about this. It seems like we've been talking about the when and permits and things, but Terry alluded to. So basically we have an extension to operate our existing system until December 1st of 2023. So we were hoping for December 31st, but we didn't get quite till the end of December, but we've got till December 1st of 2023 now from Environment Canada and Climate Change. That's the federal department responsible for our discharge into the North Saskatchewan River from the federal perspective to get things in order. So as Terry outlined, 2 years of construction and the commissioning, we should hopefully be delivered. It would be great to have the keys turned over by the middle of November at the latest, but we've got a little bit of room there from that perspective. So I'll look forward to seeing that the next mayor does not have to worry about going to jail if as administration delivers this plant.
And the validation report that we bring forward to council will have a complete construction schedule attached to it. So you will see where we're proposing some of these major components to be placed, when commissioning fully starts, when the plant really is up to full operation as well, and obviously transition into the city's hands. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Terry. Any other questions for Terry? Very thorough report. Thank you, Terry. I think that appreciate bringing the information forward, and we'll look forward to that further discussion here in August when council puts this to a vote and sees where we take it from there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on to number 8, mayor and council reports. It's things haven't changed much in our city other than we have some more reopenings today, which is exciting. Restaurants and lounges will be open to 50% capacity throughout the city. I know some of the private fitness centers have opened from that perspective, and it's great to see the community starting to continue to be re-engaged in business and moving forward from that perspective. And on a bright note, oil reached $40 a barrel last Friday and is holding there at American $40 a barrel. So it's a long ways from where we need it to be, but at least it's moving in the right direction for our local industry. So I'm hoping that that will bring some good news for some local people sooner than later. Is there any other comments from any of the council that they wish to make note of? Not seeing any, I will move to other matters, and I'll look to the city manager. 9.1.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just thought it'd be an opportune time to invite our emergency manager of operations, Jordan Newton, to provide an update to council and opportunity for council to ask any questions of Jordan. So I'll pass it over to Jordan Newton.
Good afternoon, Jordan.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council, and thank you for having me here today to share a message from the city's incident management team, which is coordinating the city's response to the global COVID-19 pandemic. 2020 has been a challenging year, to say the least. We are in the midst of a global pandemic. We have seen the crash of our global oil prices. To our neighbors to our south, we have seen civil unrest, and last Friday we seen some local groups showing their support in our community. As well as in the spring, we saw flooding that our neighbors were having along the rivers in the north, and as well right now currently there is some of our neighboring municipalities that are flooding right now again. We did send some staff to the arm of Wood Buffalo to assist in their incident management team to assist coordinating their response to the flooding. I think it's important to acknowledge publicly, I would like to thank council and mayor for their leadership through this challenging time for our community and our city. Your measured leadership and calm has made it easier for the city and the city's IMT to respond to this pandemic and to our community's needs. Some of our current priorities that we are working on is today does mark the phase 3 reopening and the Reopening Saskatchewan plan. This will see the remaining of our private businesses opening, including personal services, restaurants, gyms and fitness centers, as well as our places of worship. Now, these are opening under restriction and strict guidelines under the Reopen Saskatchewan plan, and it does apply to our whole community. The city is working hard to respond to business inquiries from our community, looking for guidance on where do they fit in the reopen plans, as well as some guidance on how to make their business meet the guidelines under the reopen plan. Now that's always a difficult problem. We do have many businesses in our community and a vast array of businesses. So we are continuing to work with them and supporting them. Our incident management team is also working on plans to reopen city buildings as well as our outdoor recreational amenities. Some of our indoor city buildings that we're currently working on is City Hall, our City of Leominster Operations Center, Service Sports Center, and specifically the fitness area, as well as our BioClean Aquatic Center. Now, within this, some of these areas are specifically mentioned in the reopen plan, such as the remainder of the Service Sports Center, as well as the BioClean Aquatic Center, are specifically mentioned in phase 4. While City Hall and operations and our fitness area are able to open currently under the reopen plans. Our priority, though, as the incident management team is ensuring employee safety, as well as our patron safety into our buildings, and while still maintaining the needed experience of interacting. We are continually looking at the plans as they are being updated almost on a weekly basis as well. For instance, the fitness center is now, there's about 3 pages of guidelines that they would have to meet to open. So we are constantly reviewing that and working with the team down there. As well, the incident management team is also starting to collect data on a citywide study that will detail reporting data across our whole organization. So what we're looking to do is build a corporate report that shows how this COVID-19 pandemic has affected our city business across the whole organization. It is our plan right now to present that in July. We will be taking, it'll be an interim report at that time, but we are taking 4 data points throughout this pandemic. So one will be last April, one will be this April that we just had at a full closure. We'll also take another data point at our phase 4, a full month of phase 4. And then we'll also do at the very end, whenever this pandemic is over, again, to show and measure what our recovery is in our community. It'll be a great report to show the community as well as yourselves how this pandemic has affected our organization at a glimpse. And now I'll turn it over for any questions.
Thank you, Jordan. I'll look to council for any questions or comments. Councillor Diachuk.
Thanks, Your Worship. I think it's important for us as council and to also acknowledge, Jordan, the work that you've done and the team has done. The word unprecedented has been used an awful lot, and I think it's a challenge for everyone relative to walking through a pandemic like this. And I know that even within our own community and looking at posts, people don't understand the concept of what pandemic means. And so if they see there's 0 cases of COVID in the community, they think we're free and clear and what's this all about, but not realizing how quickly COVID spreads and the impact that it can have. And we're seeing now that evidence in Eastern Canada with, I think it's New Brunswick, or the province that had 0, and now the number of cases are growing. So I think the steps that you took and administration took are important to acknowledge, and I think those steps are what have led us to be where we are. Where I'm not sure how many days now we're COVID free, but I think it's something to celebrate relative to the actions you took, communities taken. The fact that we don't have any, our Pioneer Lodge and House is now off the list, if you like, of being COVID, active or whatever. And so I think as a community overall, we should be giving ourselves a pat on the back in terms of the direction and the fact that we've come through this. And there's still a ways to go, and we're still worried, I suppose, like everybody else, about a second wave. But you prevent the second wave by working hard on the first wave. And I think it's important to acknowledge that the good work that's happened up to this point. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Diachuk. And it is important, I think the community realizes how well the whole community has responded and navigated through the 2 outbreaks and clusters that were declared in Lloydminster, one at the City Hospital, as well as in the Pioneer facilities. And we were able to take a calm and navigated approach through it. And I think the community responded appropriately and successfully.
I have a question, but I'll direct it to the city manager, I believe, more than the IMT, regarding city staff. Currently, our staff are reallocated throughout the city at various recreation facilities. Am I correct, Mr. Manager?
Yeah, that's correct. So people that would, where their jobs have been affected, whether it's Bioclean Aquatic Center, Service Sports Center to some degree, and that have been reallocated to various positions, whether it's cutting grass, whether it's other phases of our operation, but and most of that's been in lieu of hiring summer students. We've hired significantly less summer students than we have in the past. I believe the last number I received was 15 we hired out of 80 that we normally have. And so, as things progress and as facilities are able to open, those are adjustments that we're going to have to make as a city, because those people will be required back at their previous postings. And so we'll have to make those adjustments as we move forward, which is part of the planning process that Jordan and his team go through along with the rest of our management team.
Excellent. And and I'll leave it to either one of you. This is that's where it's going to take a little bit of planning, and simply we can't turn a switch and open a facility in one day. There will be a transition period to move to have facilities fully reopened again once that we're able to do that. Be it a couple weeks. Is that the expectation?
Yeah, well, I mean, Jordan and I talked about this earlier this morning, whether it's, City Hall could be as simple as a lane to open up, for paying bills. But you look at a facility like Service Sports Center, the ice with the pool and things like that. Obviously, those will take more time to not only become functional, but also redeploy or deploying our staff back into their normal positions and making sure that those positions that they're currently filling are being able to be filled as well with summer students. So those discussions are ongoing administratively, and we're working with Jordan and his team to make sure that plan's in place. So when the green light's given on more of them, that we're ready to go. Jordan, anything to add on that? Or?
No, I think that covers it.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments? With that, I will look to inquiries from the media. Thank you very much, Jordan. Good afternoon, Eric.
Good afternoon, and thank you for that, Your Worship. And today we have interview requests for Councillor Thorson and yourself, Mayor Gerald Albers.
Thank you very much. I will look to council for recess. Councillor Dachek.
Move to motion to recess.
Thank you. Seconder. Councillor Buckingham. Thank you very much. All in favor? And got it. And opposed? Carried. Thank you very much.